This is Plant-Based Briefing, Reducing World Hunger with Plant-Based Diets, from ProVeg International at ProVeg.com. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson, and this podcast is for people who are short on time but interested in plant-based and vegan living. I narrate, with permission, a variety of articles related to healthy, compassionate, and sustainable living in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. I do voiceover work for a living. You can find me at plantpoweredvo.com. I do commercials, e-learning, corporate videos, whiteboard videos, telephone answering systems, that type of thing. But a couple of years ago, our family went whole food plant-based for health reasons, and as I continued to research, I learned about the environmental impact of animal agriculture and the horrific truth behind the torture and abuse we inflict on animals. Even when they're quote-unquote humanely raised, we are still taking their lives at a fraction of their natural lifespan. I continued to research, and there is so much great information out there that I want to share it with people. So that's why I created this podcast. It's part of my activism, my gift to society, to get this information out there, to hopefully help save the animals, the planet, and people's health. So I reached out to a variety of contributors who create wonderful content related to plant-based, healthy, compassionate, and sustainable living, and got their approval to share the information on this podcast. So today's article is from ProVeg International. They're a food awareness organization. They're striving for a world where everyone chooses delicious and healthy food that's good for all humans, animals, and the planet. Their mission is to reduce the global consumption of animals by 50% by the year 2040. And they aim to transform the global food system by replacing conventional animal-based products with plant-based and cultured alternatives. So now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. Reducing World Hunger with Plant-Based Diets by ProVeg International at ProVeg.com. The impact of animal agriculture on world hunger. World population is increasing, and with it, the ever-growing risks of hunger, starvation, water scarcity, and environmental disasters. The question of how we feed the world fairly and sustainably has never been more urgent. A plant-based diet uses fewer resources, creates less pollution and pesticides, and can contribute to a fairer and more equal world. ProVeg provides information on how the production of animal products exacerbates both world hunger and the unfair distribution of food. Unequal distribution of food is a global problem. Globally, nearly 815 million people are undernourished. At the same time, nearly 2 billion people are overweight, with 650 million suffering from obesity. It is expected that the world population will grow by more than 30% by 2050, with around 11 to 13 billion people on the planet by 2100. The question of how to distribute our resources and feed a growing global population in order to create a just world with less hunger, animal suffering, and environmental problems has never been more relevant. Achieving food security for everyone means doing more to ensure that everyone has reliable access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food in order to maintain an active and healthy life. Animal farming wastes a staggering amount of food. However, the real waste occurs in animal agriculture. Over 50% of the world's crops are grown to feed livestock, not people. If all crops were used exclusively for direct human consumption, it would increase available food calories by 70%, which would mean that an additional 4 billion people could be fed. This means that with a purely plant-based diet, more than 10 billion people could be fed using existing agricultural land. Intensive livestock production uses about a third of the world's grain and about 75% of soy, undermining global food security. Feeding grain and soy to animals and subsequently consuming their meat and milk is less efficient in terms of energy, protein, and land use than eating the plants directly. Soy, a major livestock feed, can provide up to 15 times more protein per hectare than food of animal origin. Many other legumes and grains also have higher levels of digestible protein per hectare. Meat production causes deforestation and promotes land grabbing. The growing demand for animal products requires developed nations to import hundreds of thousands of tons of animal feed, in particular soy, maize, and grains, from developing countries in South America and Africa. The EU's average land consumption per capita is 1.3 hectares, while citizens of countries such as China and India require less than 0.4 hectares per capita. Nearly 60% of the land required to satisfy the EU's demand for agricultural and forestry products lies outside Europe, Every year, Germany and the UK each import products requiring more than 80 million hectares of land outside their own borders. This is neither fair nor sustainable. Animal products cause global water shortage. Additionally, animal agriculture requires nearly 1/3 of the world's total agricultural water footprint. Today, more than 2.1 billion people lack access to safe drinking water. Water scarcity is likely to increase, and it is expected that by 2025, around 1.8 billion people will be living in countries or regions with water scarcity. The water footprint of any animal-based product is larger than that of plant-based products with equivalent nutritional value, making it more water efficient to obtain calories, protein, and nutrients from plants than from animals. A plant-based diet requires far fewer resources. Animal agriculture contributes to deforestation and land use change, in this case the conversion of wilderness into farmland. The livestock and fishing industries are partially responsible for the loss of biodiversity, decreased ecosystem functions, climate change, water shortages, and pollution. The consumption of animal-based products on a massive scale decreases food security for hundreds of millions of people from the global south who are negatively affected by the land use changes necessary to produce these products. Their land is used to raise crops to feed livestock in wealthy countries, and their oceans are overfished to satisfy demand abroad, while they themselves frequently struggle to simply survive. Meat, dairy, eggs, and fish are in truth luxury foods that the vast majority of people do not need if well-balanced and varied plant-based diets are available. You just listened to Reducing World Hunger with Plant-Based Diets by ProVeg International at ProVeg.com. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson, and this is Plant-Based Briefing. Please reach out to me if you have any feedback or suggestions for the podcast. You can find my email at plantbasedbriefing.com. I love to hear from listeners, and I do reply to every email. Thanks for listening.